it raises the really sort of worrying prospect that we might actually have made things worse in Western countries like the UK by reacting as strongly as we did. And the obvious example is that we essentially cleared out the hospitals in expectation of this huge wave of incoming patients and ended up accidentally seeding infections in half the care homes in the country. Do you think there's any chance that we might actually have done better had we done nothing at all?
Yes, I think there's a chance we might have done better by doing nothing at all, or at least doing something different, which would have been to protect the vulnerable, to pay attention to protecting the vulnerable, to have thought about protecting the vulnerable 30, 40 years ago when we started cutting hospital beds. So the roots of this go a long, long way back. If we'd had a well-funded National Health Service, which had capacity for this sort of event, I think we would have done a lot better. The other thing to say is that remaining in a state of lockdown is also one which I think is extremely dangerous from the point of view of the vulnerability, of the entire population to new pathogens. So effectively, I think we used to live in a state approximating lockdown 100 years ago. And that was, I believe, what created the conditions for the Spanish flu to come in and kill 50 million people. And that is because what used to happen in that setting, the lockdown setting that we had, with very little international travel, with not as many contacts between people, low density populations, was one where a virus like the coronavirus would come in and sweep through and die out, which is what we're trying to get it to do. And what that meant is that if you take influenza, for example, it would come back every 30 years or so, rip through and disappear. But what that means is that every 30 years, there would be a sort of juicy fragment of the population under the age of 30 for the virus to attack. And that is exactly what we want to avoid.
So actually, people being exposed more and being out and about more is better for public health?
I think so, yes.
So the sort of follow-on question for is there a chance that things might have been better had we done nothing is there a chance if we go back to normal tomorrow and say, right, lockdown is cancelled, reopen the pubs, reopen the nightclubs, everybody as you were, things might be fine? Is that a possibility? And how can we eliminate or prove that possibility?
Well, I think it is a very strong possibility, but as you say, it's not something that one can easily prove. Obviously, the whole drive towards getting the epidemiological data was to provide that information on which one could hang such an argument, or if that proved to be wrong, to take alternative measures. But that is proving a little bit difficult. So that is a strong possibility. So what do? I think we weigh that strong possibility against the costs of lockdown. I think it's very dangerous to talk about lockdown without recognizing the enormous costs that it has on other vulnerable sectors in the population.
It's not nice to fool Mother Nature.